This is going to be my support tier list for patch 13.10, and you should know actually, before we get too invested in this video, there are no changes directly to support champions in this patch. There are no buffs, there are no nerfs, there are no adjustments. So you might be thinking, why is it that we're even spending time going over a tier list? Wouldn't there be no changes? It actually couldn't be more wrong, because there are actually a ton of changes to items in this patch. If you guys haven't seen it already, about an hour ago as of recording this video, I uploaded a video about all of the changes to the support items. Again, I kind of mentioned in this video, I would just recommend checking it out, but there are so many changes in this patch to the point that these are changes you would expect to see in the off season, in the preseason, not in the middle of the season. It's kind of insane that they're doing this big of an update in the middle of the season, but it is what it is. We have to learn, we have to adapt. So this tier list is going to be heavily based on the item changes more so than changes to champions themselves. As always, I currently have all the champions listed by win rates according to the most recent patch. And what I would typically do in situations like this is take a look at the champion changes and adjust them accordingly. Maybe move a champion up here, maybe move a champion down there. We can't do that this time around because these changes are so big that it's going to change the game as we know it. It's going to change the meta as we know it. And I really do believe that the support changes aren't going to be so much reliant on the support items being changes, and instead the support meta is going to be based on the ADC item changes. And from what I've seen, again, I'm a support main. I don't know ADC as well as I know support, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I do. But from what I've seen a lot of ADC players saying is that it's going to turn more so into like a hyper carry ADC kind of meta, something that we saw similar to like the beginning of the season with a lot of Lulu, a lot of Yumi, a lot of Nami, a lot of enchanters buffing up like the Zeris of the world, right? The late game scaling ADC champions. That's what a lot of ADC players are saying. I don't necessarily know if that's going to be the case, but what we are going to do is scratch everything that we see on the screen right now and instead take a look at these other two tier lists that I put together that I think is going to be a little bit more accurate based on the ADC meta. For starters, speaking of that scaling late game ADC, kind of ADC meta that we might see, this is what the support meta might look a little bit more like. We might be looking at more of an enchanter meta rather than a tank meta. I think currently in the game, you can see a little bit of both. We're leaning a little bit more towards a tank meta. And I honestly think that these changes are too big. And I don't want to give Riot enough credit to say that all these changes are going to come through and both enchanters and tanks are going to be viable, because history speaks for itself. And I don't think they do a great job of balancing the game when they do these huge changes. So I do think it's going to move in one drastic way or another, enchanters or tanks. And if it is indeed an enchanter support meta paired alongside late game ADCs, I think this is what we might start to expect. Janna received some buffs recently, really strong champion. However, I will say when it comes to enchanters, Janna's really good at providing a lot of utility, but not always the best for like buffing up an ADC per se. Same thing with Sona, a lot of utility, a little bit of damage, but not the best to pair alongside a late game ADC. Milio, on the other hand, I think is going to be just on another level. He's already really, really strong in the meta currently, in a meta that we're seeing a lot of tank supports. If we move towards an enchanter meta where tank supports are pushed back even more, I don't see how Milio isn't just like the best champion in the game. Annie received some nerfs a little bit ago, but she's still very viable, has a solid win rate as a support. Again, you're building her more as like an enchanter maxing E rather than doing damage, so she will also pair alongside a lot of these ADC, the late game ADCs very well. The middle of the pack here, the 50 to 51% win rate champions, I don't think there's going to be too much of a change here. We might see a little bit of a comeback for Nami, who's currently sitting at like a 50% win rate. Might see her get bumped up a little bit. And then two champions that are really going to stand out to me in this next patch, if ADCs do come back as these late game scaling ADCs, Yumi and Lulu. Again, two champions that we saw a lot early in this season have since been kind of pushed out of the meta due to some ADC changes as well as some nerfs to the champions themselves. But if we do see Zeri and Jinx and a lot of these late game ADCs become pick or ban every single game, I don't see how Yumi and Lulu aren't as well, and I could see their win rates going up as well. Now, just to play devil's advocate here, just in case a lot of these opinions that I've seen from ADC players out there are wrong, and we do go into more of like an early game ADC meta, or maybe just a meta where people are fighting a lot early game and you want to be able to play tanks so you can engage for your team, so you can frontline for your team, so that you can look for skirmishes and look for a lot of kills. this is a little bit more so how the meta might work out. At the top here, we do have Maokai and Rel. I will throw out some caution here for these champions. They are consistently really high win rate champions, but they have a very low pick rate, so take that with a grain of salt. Senna, I have her on this list, even though she's not a tank support, because she doesn't fit in with the enchanters, and she does fit in the sense that you want to play her aggressive early. So I think she's in a really good spot. I think she'll continue to be really good just because you can be really aggressive early on, trade, harass, skirmish, etc. I do think, though, that Rakan is just going to continue to be really, really good in this kind of meta. Amumu also received some like sneaky buffs last patch, which I didn't think were going to be all that great. And he's sitting at like a 52% win rate right now as a support. So he will continue to be good. Blitzcrank, Pike. This is actually sorted by win rate. So even though these are all in the same tier list, Blitzcrank has a higher win rate than Nautilus, of course, because he comes first. I think any of these champions will be solid, but definitely leaning more towards the ones on the left side of this list. So like the Blitzcrank, the Pike, the Alistar, stuff like that. But more so than anything, Rakan, Amumu, I think going to continue to be really, really good. Senna is going to be really good, even though she's not necessarily a tank, but just that early game meta. Again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that it's going to be this or that, because at the end of the day, I'm not a professional when it comes to ADC changes. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that I know everything when I really don't. And I do think that the support meta will be entirely based, or at least a large portion of it will be based on the ADC meta. So there are two different lists for you to look at here in preparation. As soon as we kind of get a better understanding of the ADC meta when this next patch comes out, you can look at both of these lists and kind of adapt accordingly. Again, this is the list from the previous patch. Forget this entirely. This does not matter anymore. This is like League of Legends 2.0. Forget everything you once knew about items. The game is completely different now. Again, if you want to know more about the items, here's a 20-minute video that I just uploaded. Go check it out on my channel. Really helpful stuff. And if you guys have any more questions about the items or about what champions you think might be good or bad in this patch, I'm always checking the comment section, so feel free to leave a comment down there, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching to the end of this video. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.